There are dates that don't go unnoticed. Some carry within them such an intense vibration that it seems to make time bend. The air change density, and the heartbeat differently. October 29th, 2025 is one of those dates. It's not about prediction, nor about fear. It's about feeling, and perhaps you've already noticed the signs. More restless nights, thoughts that come out of nowhere, coincidences that are no longer coincidental. Something has begun to move silently, and the world as we know it is about to change shape. You can try to ignore it, distract yourself, immerse yourself in routines, but deep down, you know something is happening. It's not the end. It's the beginning of an irreversible process. A process that begins within each of us and is reflected externally, in the structures that crumble, the truths that surface, the masks that fall. What will happen on October 29th won't be an event you'll see only with your eyes. It will be something you'll feel in your soul. And when you feel it, you'll understand that nothing will ever be the same again. Some events go unnoticed by those living on the surface, but for those who observe silently, attentive to the subtleties of reality, it's impossible to deny. Something has begun to pulse differently. It's not about catastrophes or visible destruction, but a subtle, almost imperceptible shift, a kind of vibration that runs through the air, a call that touches those who still remember. There's something beyond what meets the eye. Many are feeling this signal without understanding what it is. Unexplained insomnia, inexplicable fatigue, a feeling that time is speeding up. These are the first signs of what's approaching. Everything begins in the invisible. It's like a seed planted in darkness before sprouting into the light. October 29th represents the point at which this seed breaks the earth. You don't need to see it to know. Just pay attention to the small disruptions of everyday life. People leaving for no reason, emotions surfacing, unexpected decisions emerging as if guided by an invisible force. There's no coincidence in this. The invisible is becoming visible, and what seemed normal will begin to vanish like smoke. The signal comes not to scare, but to wake you up. Many fear the word irreversible, but what's becoming irreversible is the awakening. Once you feel this presence, this silent pressure within your chest, there's no going back to sleep. The world tries to distract you with noise, news, and invented emergencies, but once the process begins, nothing can hold you back. You begin to see things with new eyes, and that's the true beginning of transformation. The curious thing is that the signal doesn't arrive the same way for everyone. In some, it manifests as chaos. In others, as profound peace. It depends on what's being touched within each person, because what will happen outside is only a mirror of what's already happening inside. That's why many will feel confused while others will seem strangely calm. The same wind that extinguishes the weak flame is what makes the fire of those who are ready grow. So before trying to understand what will happen in the world on October 29th, 2025, look within. Ask yourself, what in me needs to crumble to make way for the new? What have I been avoiding feeling, seeing, accepting? Because this process doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. And the only choice we have is to resist or flow with it. With every heartbeat, the invisible draws closer. And when it finally touches the surface, it will be impossible to pretend nothing has changed. There comes a time when the noise of the world loses its power. It's as if the usual voices, opinions, and urgencies begin to sound hollow, repetitive, disconnected. You try to engage in the same conversations, the same distractions, but something inside you no longer responds. Silence begins to take hold, and with it, a strange feeling of emptiness. Many are frightened by this silence, because there's no escape. Everything you've tried to hide from yourself begins to emerge. The bottled up emotions, the denied thoughts, the stifled desires. It's silence that reveals what's truly alive within you, and this process isn't comfortable. When silence speaks, it precisely dismantles masks. It shows you what's still trapped in fear, what still depends on approval, what still tries to control the uncontrollable. It's as if a soft but relentless light begins to illuminate every forgotten corner of your mind. And suddenly, you realize how much you've been living on autopilot. Everything that seemed solid, ideas, beliefs, identities, begins to feel fragile, as if it could crumble at any moment. And perhaps it needs to, so that something truer can emerge. Many confuse this stage with sadness or loss, but it's the opposite. It's liberation. When the inner world begins to reorganize itself, it's natural for the outer world to seem to crumble. People drift apart, paths change, truths contradict each other. The universe begins to reposition each piece, and those who try to resist feel the weight. But those who learn to breathe within the silence begin to feel something new, a calm that comes not from explanations, but from acceptance. This is the basis of the process. When chaos transforms into an invitation, on October 29th, this symbolic silence expands. It's like an invisible wave that passes through everything, demanding attention. You'll notice people who are more sensitive, more reactive, or completely oblivious, trapped in the illusion of control. Everyone responds to the call as best they can. Some try to fight the tide, others decide to dive in, but everyone in some way will feel that the world has lost some of its former consistency. It's a sign that the invisible has already begun to manifest, and the curious thing is that the more you try to protect yourself, the more life finds ways to reach you. The process isn't a threat, it's a reminder. It's as if existence itself is saying, the time has come to remember who you are. And in that moment, silence ceases to be empty. It has a voice, a soft but firm voice saying, stop running away. Everything you seek is trying to find you. This is the beginning of true awakening, the moment when silence becomes a guide. As the process progresses, it begins to shake the deepest structures, the certainties. Everything you believed in blindly, the rules, the roles, the patterns, begins to unravel. And that's when many despair because the ego was built on these certainties. I am this. I believe in that. I know how the world works. But when the ground shifts, these phrases no longer make sense. October 29th represents the symbolic shaking of these foundations. It's not punishment, it's reconfiguration. Life needs to break the old molds so that the new can find space. You'll see people struggling against the inevitable. They'll try to keep up appearances, repeat outdated truths, insist on old roles. But behind it all, something inside them screams for change. Resistance is just fear. Fear of not knowing who they will be without the old definitions. And that's where suffering arises. Because the process doesn't cause pain out of cruelty. It causes pain when we insist on holding on to what's already slipping away. Those who understand this begin to let go, to allow themselves to be reshaped, to accept that everything that changes is an invitation to grow. The collapse of certainties is, in fact, the birth of wisdom. It's when you realize you no longer need to know everything, that the security you sought outside has always been within. True power lies not in control, but in trust. And this trust isn't blind. It comes from the direct experience of realizing that even when everything falls apart, something within you remains intact. This something is the point of balance that the process seeks to reveal. It doesn't seek to destroy who you are, but to liberate who you've always been. Humanity as a whole is going through this phase. Because of this, the chaos out there seems to be growing. Divisions widen, opinions clash, confusion spreads. But collective chaos is merely a reflection of an ongoing purification. Old social and emotional certainties are crumbling, and this is necessary. Only after the fall does the ground become fertile for a new kind of consciousness. Simpler, more honest, more alive. This is the silent promise behind what many call collapse. So if the world around you seems confusing, don't run away. Observe. Every rupture, every disagreement, every uncertainty is an opportunity in disguise. This irreversible process didn't come to punish you, but to free you from what kept you trapped. The secret is learning to stay present while everything changes, because when the ground collapses and you still manage to stand, it's a sign that something deeper sustains you. And that's exactly what October 29th, 2025 reveals. What truly remains when everything else disappears. The most surprising thing about major transformations is that they rarely arrive loudly. They happen silently, within small perceptions and simple gestures that would otherwise go unnoticed. The real impact isn't what happens outside, but what moves within. Suddenly, you feel like the same words no longer carry the same weight, that the places you used to frequent have lost their luster, that people seem different, or perhaps it's you who's starting to see things differently. This is the invisible impact, when the world seems the same, but everything inside you has already changed. It's a kind of subtle shock, not intended to destroy but to reveal. The body feels it before the mind understands. You wake up in the middle of the night with your heart racing, for no reason. You feel an inexplicable urge to change paths, to start over, to move away from what drains and toward what soothes. It's the invisible field adjusting itself. It's life reorganizing its frequencies so you can live at a different pace. Many mistake this movement for anxiety, but in reality, it's energy rearranging itself. The invisible works silently, but its effects are profound. When this energy permeates the collective, the entire world begins to vibrate differently. You notice more people questioning what they once blindly accepted, more hearts searching for meaning, more eyes turning inward, and even those who try to resist feel the discomfort of change. Nothing seems to fit as it once did. Systems lose credibility, structures become fragile, discourses contradict each other. The old no longer supports the new that is emerging. That's why the impact feels like confusion. It's dismantling the old stage so that the stage of consciousness can be rebuilt. The most beautiful thing is that, behind the discomfort, there is a loving wisdom guiding everything. The universe is not collapsing, it is adjusting. It's like a body healing itself, even if the process causes a fever. Pain is the sign that life is reorganizing itself. The shock is merely the friction between what insists on remaining in the past and what already belongs to the future. When you understand this, resistance diminishes, and a silent peace emerges amidst the chaos. An unexplainable certainty that despite everything there is meaning in what is happening. So, when the moment comes when everything seems out of place, remember, the invisible impact is the true miracle. It doesn't come to take anything from you, but to restore what you've forgotten: your clarity, your presence, your strength. It's life reminding you that you are part of something much greater, and when you align with this, fear begins to lose its power. Because those who feel the movement of the invisible already know, what's coming is not destruction, it is rebirth. There comes a moment when the process stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that happens through you. This is the turning point. Until now, you've been pushed by events, emotions, and decisions that seemed beyond your control. But the moment comes when you understand that you're not at its mercy. You're being called. The universe doesn't want you lost. It wants you conscious. And the call to transformation always comes amidst chaos, because it's when you're vulnerable that your heart opens to listen. The call isn't an external voice. It's an internal echo. It manifests itself in the questions you avoid asking, in the truths you insist on postponing. It's that nagging feeling that life wants more from you than you've been offering. And if you stop to listen, you'll realize it speaks simply. It's time to change. Not with guilt, not with demands, but with love. Change because growing up hurts, but staying the same hurts more. And those who hear this call begin to move from the inside out, allowing the transformation to happen naturally, like a river meeting the sea. True transformation doesn't come from grand gestures, but from small acts of awareness. It's when you choose to respond calmly where you once reacted with anger. It's when you decide to silence your mind for a few seconds and listen to your heart. It's when you realize that the pain of others is a reflection of your own and, instead of judging, offer presence. This is how the world changes, one awakened heart at a time. October 29th, 2025, then, ceases to be a date and becomes a symbol, the inner milestone of a collective turning point, where each person begins to align with their own truth. But answering the call requires courage. Courage to face head-on what needs to be left behind. Courage to accept that the old self doesn't fit in the new world. Courage to allow yourself to be light even when everything seems heavy. This is the essence of the irreversible process. Once you awaken to your own light, there's no going back to sleep. You can try, but discomfort will always bring you back, because the purpose of life is to push you to your own center. And once there, everything changes. Transformation, at its core, is an act of love. Love for yourself, for existence, for what you don't yet understand but feel is true. It's love that sustains the process when fear tries to dominate. It's love that reminds you that, even when everything seems uncertain, there's a silent purpose guiding every step. And when you finally accept this call, the shock ceases to be a threat and becomes awakening. From that moment on, the irreversible thing isn't collapse, it's awareness. Since ancient times, humans have looked to the sky and its symbols to decipher the invisible. Stories about comets, wandering stars, signs in the heavens, they all carry a pattern, something greater wanting to engage in dialogue with human life. Currently, there is talk of an interstellar visitor called 3I Atlas, whose characteristics and trajectory have sparked both scientific fascination and the echo of ancient visions. These mentions function as a metaphor for what is emerging within us, the unspeakable approaching, touching the ordinary, and demanding attention. And you, who may never have paid attention to prophecy or sign, feel a hidden unease. It's as if something higher is saying, "Don't run away anymore." Prophecies, however symbolic, reflect a bridge between the human and the divine, or rather, between the conscious and the unknown within us. And this turning point, this date of October 29, 2025, becomes a symbolic, not necessarily literal, marker that the irreversible process aligns with time, with the cosmos, with what you haven't yet heard. When you look at the prophecies, you realize they weren't just external events but inner calls. Even the ancient texts, many imprecise, many forgotten, pointed to transformation, renewal, to the moment when the old would give way to the new. And that moment is echoing now, not just as a prediction but as an invitation. The shock you fear may be the gentle sound of something greater within you breaking the silence. Accepting this is recognizing that the mirror of prophecy is before you, and with you as the protagonist. So don't be alarmed if strange things start happening. What seemed like coincidence will become synchronicity. What you ignored will become evident, because the invisible finds a method and form to manifest itself, and the universe seems to be aligning itself so you can perceive it. October 29th is not the end. It's a threshold where prophecy slows down and awakening accelerates. So, take a deep breath, look within, and recognize the subtle warning has been given. The mirror of prophecy now reflects what is to come within you. When many begin to feel the call, something great moves within the human mass. It's no longer just about you but about us. Not just about individual change but about a shared wave. The irreversible process isn't isolated, but communal. October 29, 2025, becomes a symbol that human consciousness is moving to a new frequency. It's as if an invisible tide is pulling at the shore, and those who are alert can choose to surf or be swept away. In this tide, old systems no longer hold the same weight. Imposed truths begin to vibrate falsely. Appeals to authority lose strength and authenticity takes center stage. You'll see debates, ruptures, people rising up or retreating. But what seemed strong reveals itself to be fragile, and what seemed insignificant becomes essence. This is the tide of consciousness, demanding recognition, and you can feel it in your body. A restlessness, a desire for truth, for cohesion with something greater. The key is, don't run from the tide, thinking it will carry you away. It will, but not to the abyss, but to new ground. Surrounding yourself with fear nourishes the old. Embracing the movement allows renewal, and this tide doesn't choose an exact date, but it shows you to realize that October 29th is not just an external landmark, but an internal compass. The collective consciousness is awakening, and the individual call connects to the whole. The tide makes this awakening something common, yet unique to each being. When you begin to surf it, you realize that your before no longer seems enough. Conversations shift, motivations change, purpose redistributes. You discover you're not alone, that there are others opening their eyes, feeling the same internal pressure, hearing the same signal. The feeling, it's not just me. This generates strength, generates unity, generates something greater than fear itself. And for those who have prepared, this tide will be the beginning of something beautiful, albeit radical. So be ready. The tide comes in silently, but relentlessly. October 29, 2025, represents this symbolic alignment between the individual and the collective, between what you feel and what is coming. The choice is to answer the call or resist the current, because in the end, the irreversible process doesn't happen just behind the date, but through it, within you, along with many others. There comes a time when what was familiar becomes too heavy to carry. What once seemed stable, the job, the routine, the plans, the beliefs, begins to dissolve in one's hands. It is the internal collapse that heralds the arrival of the new. People talk about changing the world, but the world changes first within each of us. October 29th, 2025, symbolizes the moment this internal disintegration gains momentum. There is no stopping it. There is only a choice between resistance and rebirth. Everything false begins to crack. Everything true endures and shines. The inner collapse is silent, No one sees the moment you decide you no longer fit in, the moment an old thought ceases to dominate you. But this is the most powerful moment of the process, the moment you refuse to keep repeating the old. It's when you realize that pain isn't punishment, it's childbirth. That emptiness isn't punishment, it's space for the new to be born. Every time something collapses within you, there's an old part leaving and a new consciousness arriving. And it's this movement that transforms suffering into growth. The old world is also made of inherited fears, fear of failure, of disappointment, of rejection. When the process begins, these fears lose strength because they can no longer control the new being that awakens. What once held you back now seems too small. Relationships are reconfigured, priorities are adjusted, and even time seems to acquire a different rhythm. It's as if life gives you permission to exist more authentically. The collapse of the old is not destruction, it is liberation. Meanwhile, outside, society shows the same reflection. Ancient institutions tremble, rigid ideas clash, truths contradict each other. The macro mirrors the micro. What happens within you happens collectively, only on a larger scale. And the chaos that seems to dominate is merely a mirror of millions of individual awakenings happening simultaneously. That's why the process seems intense. Never have so many been called at once. And when you understand that collapse is sacred, fear turns to reverence. Because behind every ending, there's a silent new beginning taking shape. Consciousness opens like a flower blossoming amidst the rubble, and what was once ruin becomes fertile soil. At that point, you no longer fear the process. You recognize it as part of your very nature. The old collapses, yes, but only to reveal what was always there, the essence that cannot be destroyed. Once the inner ground gives way, your perspective changes. Things no longer seem the same because you are no longer the same. What was once routine becomes contemplation. What was once haste becomes pause. What was once control becomes surrender. This new perspective doesn't arise from the mind, it arises from presence. It is a clear, unarmed perception that sees the world without the lens of fear. When this perspective awakens, the everyday becomes mystical, the simple becomes sacred, and each moment seems to hold a silent meaning. This is where the process begins to reveal its true beauty. This new perspective sees invisible patterns. You notice synchronicities. You sense when something is in harmony or misaligned. People start talking, and you hear what's behind the words. Life communicates in subtle ways, in coincidences, in encounters, in unexpected pauses. The universe ceases to be a place of chance and becomes a field of messages. And this perception isn't a privilege of the few. It's natural for those who have regained their senses. October 29th, then, becomes a symbol of clear vision, the day the blind person within decides to open their eyes. But this new perspective demands responsibility. Because seeing more means feeling more. When you begin to perceive the pain and fear of others, the natural impulse is to judge or withdraw. But true awakening demands compassion, understanding that each person is in their own process, that each soul moves at its own pace. This new perspective doesn't serve to distinguish the awake from the asleep, it serves to unite. Clear vision reveals that everyone is moving toward the same point, albeit via different paths. It is at this stage that the collective begins to reorganize. People with the same vibration meet, communities emerge, and new forms of coexistence emerge. The old way of competing begins to give way to the desire to cooperate. Relationships become more transparent, more alive, less masked. The awakened gaze is contagious, a spark that spreads. The more people express this, the faster the old dissolves. The tide of awakening becomes a current, and when the new perspective takes hold, life regains its color. Fear gives way to curiosity. Fatigue gives way to inspiration. Loneliness transforms into communion. You realize that this irreversible process didn't come to destroy the world, but to return it to its natural state. Alive, conscious, connected. October 29th, 2025 ceases to be a date and becomes a symbolic portal of perception. Because when you truly see, you discover that the miracle was always happening. It was just hidden behind the eyes that couldn't see. Once your perspective changes, the world changes with it. Everything that once seemed distant, the small choices, the words spoken without thinking, the automatic gestures, now carries a different weight. You begin to realize that every action is a seed sown in the invisible field of reality. And what was once unconscious becomes sacred: the way you speak, what you consume, what you think, what you feel. This is how awakening ceases to be merely internal and becomes movement, action, coherence. This irreversible process begins to shape daily life. At this stage, the body becomes a bridge. The hands become an extension of consciousness. The steps, instruments of purpose. You realize that acting with presence is as transformative as meditating in silence. And that, instead of waiting for a miracle, you are invited to be the miracle. Each choice aligned with the heart creates a crack of light in the collective web, and the more people live with intention, the faster the shadow loses its power. The new world isn't born of prophecies. It's born of simple actions sustained by love. But this is also where the challenge intensifies, because acting from awareness means letting go of old rewards, approval, control, haste. It means serving even without being noticed, doing good even without return, trusting even without guarantees. And this is the silent test of awakening. The mind wants results. The heart simply wants to contribute. When you understand this, heaviness becomes lightness. Living becomes an act of surrender and no longer of demands. On October 29, 2025, this conscious action takes on a collective meaning. It's as if an invisible chain of people spread across the world began to act with the same purpose: to heal, to understand, to unite. They may not even know each other, but they vibrate with the same call. And this is the true revolution, not made of protests or shouts, but of silent presences that sustain the invisible balance of the planet. This irreversible process doesn't destroy the world. It rebuilds it through us. And when you finally understand that the simple is the sublime, everything changes. Caring for someone, breathing deeply, listening without interrupting, giving thanks, all of these become sacred acts. Transformation is no longer on the horizon, it's in your hands. And that's why this process is irreversible, because once you begin living consciously, there's no going back to living in a state of sleep. Awakening in action is the birth of a new world, a world that begins right where you are right now. As individuals awaken, something larger begins to form, a silent network of souls connected by the same purpose. There are no leaders or flags, only resonance. People who have never met share the same inner drive, to live truthfully. This invisible web is the true body of the new consciousness. It crosses borders, religions, and cultures. And when it manifests, it creates synchronicities that seem like miracles, unlikely encounters, messages at the right time, coincidences that lead to transformation. It is the intelligence of the invisible, uniting the parts. This web is not built by effort, but by vibration. Each time you choose to act with love instead of fear, a thread of light extends and connects you to others who do the same. And so, without fanfare, the collective field rises. The entire planet begins to breathe differently, as if a new frequency were being anchored. October 29, 2025, symbolically marks the moment this network begins to become visible, when many will feel they are no longer alone on this journey. And what this web carries is not power in the ordinary sense, but presence. It is the power to sustain peace amidst chaos, to see unity where there is division. When thousands begin to vibrate in this same field, the impossible becomes natural: emotional healing, reconciliation, clarity where there was confusion. The world begins to reorganize itself, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. This is the invisible architecture of the new era, and all who awaken become builders of it, even without realizing it. Of course, not everyone will understand. Many will still look at the world through the old lens and see only crisis, ruin, and loss. But those who see from within will know. It's simply the old giving way to the new. And this perception isn't arrogance, it's compassion. Because the role of those who awaken is not to judge those who sleep, but to illuminate the path without imposing their own light. This is the mission of the invisible web, to maintain balance even when everything seems unstable. The true strength of this connection lies in its simplicity. There are no mandatory rituals, no formulas. There is only presence. Being here now with an open heart is already participating in the network, because every conscious breath feeds the field. Every kind gesture strengthens the bond. And as more people remember this, humanity approaches a silent turning point, the moment when the invisible will become visible. And when that happens, we will realize we were never apart. When something new takes hold, The natural impulse is to reject what came before. But true awakening doesn't destroy the past. It integrates it. The old world, with all its mistakes and excesses, was the soil where new seeds could germinate. Without it, there would be no contrast, no learning. Integration happens when you realize that everything played a role, even the pain, even the mistake, even what seemed like a waste. October 29, 2025, symbolizes this moment of reconciliation, when the new perspective turns to the past with gratitude, not guilt. Integration means accepting that light and shadow are part of the same path, that within you lie old memories, habits that resist, impulses that still struggle, and all of this is material to be transformed, not denied. When you embrace what you once wanted to erase, something changes. The energy that was trapped begins to flow again. It's as if each forgotten part of your being asks to be heard and reintegrated into the whole. Awakening, then, ceases to be a quest for perfection and becomes the art of reconciliation. In integration, judgment loses its meaning. You realize that no one is behind or ahead. Everyone is learning in their own way. The old paradigm of separation begins to crumble, and the new way of seeing the world is based on understanding. This shift is silent, but powerful. A heart that understands is more revolutionary than 1,000 speeches. And this understanding doesn't come from theory. It comes from the experience of going through chaos and still choosing to love. The collective world also begins to reflect this integration. Extremes lose strength. The walls of us versus them begin to dissolve. Bridges, dialogues, and reunions emerge. People realize they don't need to think alike to coexist. They just need to respect each other's rhythm. This irreversible process shows that harmony is not uniformity. It is a symphony. And the more contrasts unite, the richer the melody of existence becomes. Integrating both worlds means realizing that awakening is not an escape from humanity, but rather its fullness. That the sacred is not distant, but present in every breath. When this perception matures, the new takes hold. Chaos gives way to serenity, and purpose begins to reveal itself, to live fully, without fear of feeling. The end of separation is the beginning of wisdom. There's a moment when everything that seemed mysterious becomes understanding. The purpose, which once seemed distant, begins to reveal itself in small intuitions, in simple gestures. The irreversible process was never about destruction, but about alignment. It brought you here to remind you that the meaning of life is not to escape suffering, but to discover what it tries to teach. This is the silent purpose, to learn to transform any experience into consciousness. Awakening shows that there is no such thing as coincidence. Every person who crossed your path, every loss, every delay, every impulse, had a reason. Even the detours were part of the journey. When you realize this, resentment dissolves and gives way to gratitude. You understand that life never took the wrong direction. Everything that came your way was there to lead you to this point. And October 29, 2025, a symbol of this process, marks the moment when humanity begins to collectively realize this, that chaos has a direction, and that the invisible has always known the way. The silent purpose is also collective. It breathes in the hearts that seek to heal the world through their own healing. With each person who reconciles with themselves, a part of the planet calms. With each mind that chooses awareness, a layer of shadow dissipates. Human destiny is to cooperate, not compete. True power lies in kindness, a strength that doesn't shout, but sustains. This is the vibration that begins to spread after the shock, firm, compassionate, and unwavering. But purpose isn't a destination, it's a state of presence. It manifests when you're fully in the now, when you don't need to prove anything, nor run from anything. It's the place where the past loses its weight and the future ceases to be a threat. It's the silence between heartbeats where you feel everything makes sense even without understanding. In this space, the search ends and life truly begins. And in the end, the purpose is simple: to remember who you are. This is what the irreversible process is for: to remove what you are not and reveal what has always been there, luminous, patient, waiting for the right moment. That moment is now, not in some distant future, but in each breath you allow yourself to be whole. There comes a point when the path ceases to be a search and becomes a remembrance. You realize you weren't moving toward truth, you were returning to it. October 29, 2025 represents the symbolic milestone of this collective remembrance, the moment when many begin to return to their essence, shedding layers of fear, guilt, and illusion. This irreversible process culminates not with fire or ruin, but with reconciliation. It is the moment when the human heart remembers its true sound, and it's curious to realize how everything that seemed like chaos was actually part of a larger orchestra. Each loss prepared you, each silence taught you, each pain honed a fragment of your wisdom. You crossed the desert and discovered that it wasn't punishment, it was a mirror, because it was there that you learned to hear your own voice, to trust the invisible, to recognize the power that arises from the simple act of persevering. The irreversible process didn't come to take anything from you, but to give you back everything you had forgotten you already possessed. Now the world no longer needs new prophecies but awakened presences. People who know how to look into eyes and see souls, who understand that every gesture, no matter how small, builds collective destiny, who know that light is not a distant phenomenon, but a state chosen with every thought. The new era will not come from outside. It emerges when someone, silently, decides to be light in their own space. This is how the planet changes, one awakened heart at a time. Perhaps the true shock announced isn't the collapse but the awakening, the moment you recognize yourself as whole, when you realize you're not what happened to you, but what you chose to be from what happened to you, when you understand that life was never against you but for you, even when it hurt. This is the irreversible process, the transformation that begins in silence and ends in truth, a call that echoes in the soul and says, "Remember, you are already what you seek." So if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you recognized this message, and perhaps this is your own sign. Subscribe to continue walking with me on this journey of consciousness, because the process doesn't end here, it just changes form. And I want you to leave a mark in the comments so I know you stuck with me until the end. Write the word Renaissance. I want to see how many really felt the call until the very last moment.